Now, already shoveling things around, I was going to introduce a first speaker who is now no longer the first speaker, but I would like to introduce the new first speaker, who 24 hours ago had been binned, then he was last, and now he's first, which tells you something about the degree of commitment from this former Member of Parliament and now member of the Scottish Parliament. He's been a stalwart champion for electoral reform. He's a brilliant and passionate speaker. He commits himself to the fight for equality and the fight for fair votes. And I'm really delighted to welcome Paul Sweeney.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, thanks for the rapid acceleration up the party list there to the top of the bill. I think it's really important that we're here together because we've spent so many years together as a group at party conferences steadily building support for electoral reform in this country, not just for self-indulgent reasons or for reasons of political nerdery, but it's because it's an existential question for the future of the United Kingdom, and it's something we really need to take cognizance of. Certainly, as a member of the Scottish Parliament and as previously a member of the House of Commons, I've been watching the tensions build in this country over the last decade or so, whether it was the Scottish independence referendum, whether it was the Brexit referendum, or the rise of populist nationalism. And I don't think we can allow ourselves to be blinded by the hubris of the election win last year, as great and fantastic and as seismic as it was, because we always have to remember the last century has been a Tory century punctuated by occasional Labour governments. And that's what we need to be aware of, the long-term prospects for our nation, and to build a system of politics in this country that reflects the structural progressive majority that truly exists in this country and ensure that we can embed that for the long term. We cannot allow the rise of populist nationalism to rend the future of the United Kingdom. And there is a potential scenario where if we don't reform the electoral system, we visit that horrendous scenario upon our country. And if that does happen at the next general election, then we can face the extinction of the United Kingdom. We can see the border poll in Northern Ireland happening. We can see a sustained majority for independence in Scotland as a result of that. So I think we need to be aware of the risks, but we also need to be aware of the opportunities to build the future that this country truly wants, that it truly votes for every general election pretty much consistently for the last half century. They want progressive politics. They want a social democratic-led government system in this country. We as a Labour movement have to reprogram the system to reflect the true will of the people, and then they will feel that their votes truly count and their opinion truly matters. So we can build that together. So it's time for us to do it together. Thank you.
It really is a shame you only get 2 minutes, to be honest, so we might ask you to stay at the end and give us another hour and a half. Our next speaker is probably going to miss his own rally in order to be here with us. He's a long time supporter of proportional representation, and he knows the Labour Party, I think, inside out. He probably can do an encyclopedic description of every single seat in the country, and he also tells a very moving personal story about why he was first persuaded to vote proportional representation. He is now an MP, so I would like to welcome, and it's the first time, in fact, I've welcomed you as an MP, Luke Akers, the MP for North Durham.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to test my middle-aged eyesight with my notes in this gloom. I've supported this cause since I was 16 when I first joined the Labour Party, and then I actually joined what was then Labour Campaign for Electoral Reform in 1990. And I have to say, the way the debate is conducted is a lot better now. It's actually, there's a mutual respect to the debate, which my memory of the 90s and early 2000s was that it was vile. That if you stood up and said you supported proportional representation, you were accused of being a traitor who wanted to undermine the Labour Party, who was trying to throw away our seats, someone that didn't care about the areas where our core vote was, etc., etc. And so I'm pleased that it's actually conducted in a more rational and calm way now. And I think we're continuing to make headway, though when it's one of those campaigns that you've been involved in since 1990, you can't hold your breath and wait for an instant result. The key thing, I think, is we mustn't talk about this in terms of the Labour Party's own self-interest. Clearly, there will be times when people ask, what is the impact on the Labour Party? The reality is a proportional electoral system will probably help the Labour Party when we're not doing that well, and probably take the edge off the number of seats that we would get in years when we do fantastically well with first past the post. But actually, we have literally no idea how people would vote if there was a different electoral system. So there's no point prognosticizing about, we would get this number of seats better or this number of seats worse. People would behave in a totally different way if they had a genuine choice that wasn't determined by geography and where their vote counted equally throughout the country. So my message to you, because someone's already saying please wrap up, is my message is we have to go out and win this on our social democratic values. The word democracy is in there because we should fight for the best forms of democracy that we can get, and the social aspect of social democracy is about equality and justice, and that means justice for people in terms of their economic outcomes, justice for people in terms of their social outcomes and the lives that they have, but justice in terms of a vote in any part of the country should be worth exactly the same. And much as I loved the hero voters who switched from Tory to Labour in the last general election, actually, it's an appalling indictment of our electoral system. There are some people whose votes counted effectively double because they took one off the Tory majority and one onto Labour. Everyone's vote should have an equal value, and that's what we're fighting for.
Now, I don't want to make any big cultural assumptions, but could the people who are being very British and sitting at the end of an aisle shuffle along into the middle so that then these people can move in? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry, we only appear to have one door. Basically, we don't want you to leave. Hello, thank you for coming. And so like a herd, they left. But they will return. Apart from the nice photographer down here who knows about STV. So, please do take your seats. You're very welcome. We'll spare you the reintroduction, but thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is a member of the Labour for a New Democracy team. She's been a brilliant, brilliant campaigner, very proud also to call her a friend. I'd like you to all welcome Caroline Osborne.
Thank you. I'm proud to be the trade union officer for Labour for a New Democracy. I've worked closely with trade unionists from all the affiliates, and the campaign now has the support of 2/3 of affiliated unions. Sadly, the wonderful Naomi Pohl, General Secretary of the Musicians Union, is unable to join us tonight. She's asked me to send her best wishes and to share the following statement. The Musicians Union has long supported proportional representation. We need a fairer system where every vote counts, the breadth of the views in society are properly represented in government, and we avoid massive swings from left to right. We need a system that will encourage voter turnout and address apathy. The Musicians Union supports PR, a new, fairer electoral system. Thank you.
Our next speaker is probably thinking, I didn't realise it was me next. But she'll rise to the occasion as she does every time. We are really, really delighted in Labour for New Democracy to partner with a wide range of organisations in the electoral reform world. The one that has always and consistently had absolute strategic clarity about the need to change PR and the voting system for Westminster is Make Votes Matter. They have consistently understood that that is the single biggest change that we need to make. They're new-ish. Many of you will know her, but some of you might not yet. CEO is with us this evening. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Emma Harrison.
Thank you, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you all today. You know, quite a lot has happened since we gathered last year here at Labour Party conference. We are now have unprecedented support for electoral reform, with 60% of the public thinking we need to change the system, and I'll whisper it in here, but that includes Tories. Come on. This is my fan club, by the way. I asked them to come in, so I'm speaking. Yeah, don't worry, lads. I don't need a photo. It's fine. It's fine. So these Tory voters also support PR. And we have the largest all-party parliamentary group in the Commons, which is Fair Elections, yes, with all the Labour members. And thank you to every Labour member who's in there. Up and down the country, we have activists who are knocking on doors, talking to MPs, holding street stalls, and talking more and more about PR. And more people are signing up because they know that first past the post is failing. But there are two things that I hear, and our activists hear all the time. First one, my vote doesn't count, so I'm giving up and not voting. And the second is PR lets the far right in. The lack of trust in politics is what's causing the crisis within our democracy. And when people opt out, they move and are more attracted to extreme views. And as Reform climb in the opinion polls, it is evident that they, like the Labour Party, could win on 34% of the vote. So today I'm here to throw down the gauntlet to Labour. We have a golden opportunity coming up, the election strategy. And in that, there's a provision for votes at 16. And Keir Starmer said, the sky didn't fall in when we introduced votes at 16 in Wales and Scotland. And I say to you, Sir Keir, that when you introduce PR into Wales and Scotland, those magnificent nations, the sky didn't fall in there either. So it's time for us to take back control, introduce PR. If that feels like a step too far, the other thing you can do right now is have a national commission on electoral reform. Give the experts and the public the chance to talk about the democracy we want. Because if I know anything right now, that the only people who lose under first past the post are our voters. Thank you, and thanks, press. You've been great.
I mean, who'd have thought it? Honestly, electoral reform has never been so popular. I'm just going to insert myself into a photograph here. Hi, chaps. Now, you're all very welcome. I know you're here. Some have already said it for single transferable vote discussion. That is coming soon. Any of you, what are your views on multi-member systems? National Commission on Electoral Reform? Yeah. I can see you're all really grabbed. This guy, by the way, shame on the rest of you, this guy knows about all of that. So, I said to our next speaker, don't worry, it'll be low-key. Nobody will even notice you've arrived. We'll just sneak you in between a couple of MPs that no one else has heard of. And if you're lucky, a couple of people will turn up. If I could repeat my plea to the representatives of the Fourth Estate, who are incredibly welcome, because this is a very important subject. You are really, really welcome. We have been delighted by the amount of media coverage given to electoral reform. If you have pressing engagements in about 8 minutes' time, could you leave discreetly? And I know that our next speaker would say the same, as he has said it on previous occasions. So, click away. I mean, I could do a little bit of a turn now, sing maybe. So, our next speaker probably doesn't need much of an introduction. But I'm going to give him a slightly serious one, as I know that this is a subject that he takes incredibly seriously. Our next speaker brings the wisdom of someone who understands Westminster, warts and all, and also the experience of doing democracy differently, running one of the UK's greatest city. I am from Leeds and I do love Liverpool, so Manchester is third. I'm absolutely delighted that despite the fact that there is no high-speed train link, he has made it over from Manchester to Liverpool. And I'm really, really very pleased and grateful, as I know there's lots of pressures on his time. Thank you for joining us, Andy, again. And if you can make your way through the crowd.
Thank you, Laura. It is, as you say, wild, isn't it, how popular PR is becoming. And come in, everybody. There's more there, so it's great to see you all. And there's nothing more unstoppable, is there, than an idea whose time has come. And PR's time has definitely come, as I'm going to spell out this afternoon. But I wanted just to say how I got here, because I am a convert, so it's important to explain my own journey. I remember standing for the last time for Westminster in 2015 under first past the post, and I became increasingly uncomfortable with our own style of campaigning, going past a lot of doors and waiting for a Labour promise or a Labour doubtful, but just walking past the windows of lots of other voters who probably thought, why don't they knock on my door? And I kind of thought, ooh, I don't feel good about that. And then 2 years later, I stood for the first time under a PR system to be Mayor of Greater Manchester. And you know what? The conversation on the doorstep changed completely. Because all of a sudden, you were trying to persuade Greens, Lib Dems, Tories even, to give you their second preference, or even their first preference if they felt so minded. It was quite a revelation to me to have that type of conversation. Point scoring gave way to trying to find points of agreement. And that was such a powerful thing, it felt to me, particularly in the mayoral role when you kind of go into it with a place-first mentality rather than a party-first mentality. And what I would say is it creates a situation where the process of politics starts to align with the way the public see politics. Because they look at us and they look at what goes on in Westminster and on the television screens and they think, why don't they just try and find solutions and sort of work together? Why don't they do that? And that's the kind of average person sort of take. And yet the politician, the political animal, is always thinking, how can I score points off the other person? And that's why politics doesn't connect often with people on the doorstep. And so for me, moving to a proportional system almost aligned the conversation that we were having as politicians with how the public saw things. And I think if we were to move to a PR system for Westminster, we would get the same effect, replacing point scoring with the search for points of agreement. And I think that's what the country needs, actually, right now. A more collaborative politics. And that's what I've done as Mayor of Greater Manchester. I've worked with Tory leaders of Bolton Council, Lib Dem leader of Stockport Council. When you take a place-first approach, it's unbelievable what you start to unlock, the power of politics when you align it with the public and you put the place where they live first. So I kind of take all of that experience, having been mayor and having left Westminster, into my thinking about where we are now as a country. And I say this is an idea whose time has come, because I think the world we are in now demands a new politics. It demands a new approach. I feel very strongly that the next election, whenever it comes, is in many ways not going to be the traditional lineup of the parties and which one do you want. I feel we're heading towards an election that is a choice of two worldviews. Our view, the progressive view, the values that have shaped the country that we've always known and always lived in, or something much darker and very divisive. That in many ways will be what is in front of the country when we get to that next election. And in my view, in the times in which we are living, it is dangerous to continue with an electoral system that can elect a majority government on a minority of the votes. So I'm here tonight to endorse the call of Labour for a new democracy, for a national commission to be set up in this Parliament, and a manifesto commitment to a system of proportional representation to be introduced into Westminster elections in the next Parliament. I think that would lay the ground for a new politics, a better conversation with the public. But here's the real magic that this approach might take you towards. Political reform opens the door to economic reform and some of the structural changes this country needs to make. In my view, we're living in a time where we've lost control of the costs of the essentials, and in many ways we've lost control of the costs of public spending, because everything was broken up and sold off in the 1980s. We don't control life's essentials as a country in a way that we once did. People are overpaying for water, housing, energy, transport, and the country is overpaying for those things as well. If you think about housing specifically, the 1.4 million social and council homes this country has lost since the 1980s costs us now £25 billion every year. We're £25 billion poorer because of the loss of those social homes. When you have a benefit system that is chasing rents in the private rented sector, that's what I mean about losing control of your costs, or when councils have got no other way of dealing with a bill for temporary accommodation that just keeps rising and rising and rising. And make no mistake, friends, we are still losing right now more social homes every year than we are building. So the grip of the housing crisis is getting tighter. What I think a move to a proportional system would do is it would allow a new politics to come in, where parties that can agree could set a long-term approach to repairing the basics, building the council and social homes that we need as a country over a 10-year period. And it's why I said, and Mr. Neil, you got this wrong in the newspapers today, I said the £40 billion that was allocated at the spending review as a start for housing, and well done Angela Rayner, and well done the government for backing what Angela Rayner was calling for. Rather than 60% of that being allocated to council and social homes, allocate 100% of that and get going now on a programme to build council homes as significant as the post-war Labour government oversaw. Because the way I look at it, growing up here in the northwest of England, what brought the social mobility, the working class aspiration in the 70s, the 80s, in this part of the world? It was the foundation of a good, secure home, a council home. That helped so many people from these parts make something of their lives, combined with technical education, a system of technical education that gave everyone a way of making progress. And I think we've got to go back to repairing the basics: housing, education, transport, do what we've done in Greater Manchester all over the country. And these are the ideas that I'm putting forward because I think we need to debate them as a party. And to me, the way to reassure the bond markets and stop looking over our shoulder at them is to have that long-term stable approach agreed between different political parties. That takes the volatility away. That takes the uncertainty away. And then the country's back on the right path where we've got the headroom to make this investment that in the end improves people's lives and improves the public finances. So, to come to a conclusion, I know there are other speakers. I'm putting these ideas forward for a debate, and that's what I've launched. I've launched a debate on our direction because I think we need it at this moment, because I want this government to be a success. And let me say something about what I've done in recent weeks that proves I am here to support the government to be that success. I spent much of my summer strengthening the Hillsborough law, making sure that the bill I put into Parliament in 2017 was fully replicated in the new government bill. And I worked hard so I could say to the Hillsborough families, this is good enough to call a Hillsborough law. And I did that because I wanted this conference to be a success for the Prime Minister, the government in this city. And it's absolutely wonderful to see the commitment to it. But I think we need to go further, and we do need to have a debate about our direction. And I, for one, won't be shying away from that. And in fact, I'm in a position to say something to open up that debate. I think it's very important that we do that, right now. Because I said before, the next election, when it comes, will be a big choice. Well, let's not forget, the challenge is right in front of us now. May 2026 is going to be a huge challenge for our party. I know there'll be councillors in this room, members of the Senate, Scottish Parliament. You know, this country could take a big step in a direction that we would feel very worried about in just a few short months' time. And one of the things I think we do need to have a debate about is how do we have a policy agenda that connects more, that tells a story more when people are on those doorsteps about what the government is trying to do and deals with those basics, the cost of living, the cost of all of those things that I mentioned before. And one thing I am worried about, and I think we do need to debate at this conference, in my view, is how can you have an open debate about all of those things if there's too much of a climate of fear within our party and the way the party is being run? How do you get an open debate about the direction that we need to take to reconnect with the public if a party member is suspended for liking a tweet by another political party, or a member of Parliament loses the whip for trying to protect disability benefits or the two-child cap? You know, how do you get to that point if that is the way we're doing things, where debate is being closed down? And that, to me, is what we've got to change. And I was really pleased to see Lucy Powell go out there first and say, we do need to remove that two-child benefit cap. She's got my strong support for Deputy Leader. I hope she's got yours too, because we need to get back to a party that allows people to express different views. Because I was, as you know, in the Blair government and in the Brown government, and I don't remember the party in Parliament being run in that way in that era, because Labour in government needs to draw strength from all bits of the Labour family. It needs to hear voices from all parts of the Labour family. And to sustain a Labour government, you can't be narrow and shallow. You've got to have everybody in play, everybody working together. To fight the threat we're facing, we need to be more united, everybody, don't we? We need all people feeling part of this Labour government. And that's why we need to have this debate now. And it's why, to those today making calls for simplistic statements of loyalty, well, I say, if that closes down the debate we need, I think it's at risk of underestimating the peril the party is in as we get to the polls next May. So I've been accused of all things in the last week, as you can probably see. I've done nothing more than launch a debate. And what I would say to those who say that I'm speaking out purely for my own ambition, I can say to you all tonight, I am speaking out for the thousands of councillors here at this conference who are worried about going to those doorsteps next May. Speaking for the members of the Senate who, again, are working hard to keep Wales Labour. That's what we want to do next year. And of course, members of the Scottish Parliament as well, who want a stronger story about Labour to go to those doorsteps. I'm speaking out for the millions of good people around Britain who want a more hopeful direction for the country. I think we can do it. I honestly believe it can be done. We can make this government work. We can find that more hopeful direction, and we can win again at the next general election. Thank you very much indeed for listening, everybody.
Well, all I can say is it's a good job he gets the buses to run more on time than his own timekeeping. Could those who are leaving do so quietly and quickly? And to those who are staying because you came for electoral reform, thank you. Sorry, could I don't want to sound like your least favourite head teacher, but if you are discreetly leaving, could it be discreetly? Luckily for us all, our next speaker has incredibly broad shoulders and will not be at all fazed by the fact that he is following Andy Burnham, because our next speaker brings the wisdom, the experience, the guts and the determination of a trade union general secretary. We are absolutely delighted to have Mick Whelan with us. He is reaching the end of his tenure, and he's an extremely popular General Secretary in his own trade union. That is no mean feat, because it's not an easy job. He's taken his organisation out on strike successfully. He's led with courage and determination. He is very, very popular. And if all that were not enough, he is also a supporter of electoral reform. So I would like to introduce Mick Whelan from Aslo.
Colleagues, friends, I don't think I've ever cleared a room so quickly. And the advice was step forward because you need to be in the light. So if I'm blinding you, my bald head, I apologise. But it is amazing to be here today. We've been having these conversations for a long time. And I can remember when there was less of us down here speaking than there was in the room. But the actual appetite for a change of what we do and how we do it is there. And we can't on one hand start talking about franchising people and giving people a vote at 16, where we know that the current system alienates young people. They see all politicians, regardless of shade or colour or party, as the same. So unless we want to actually give them that universal suffrage, that voice that comes with that vote, the opportunity to say the sort of world that they want, where they want to be on a green agenda, which may not always tally with our agenda and where we need to be. And I want to echo one or two of the themes of Andy Burnham without turning into his spokesperson. I mean, I've been talking about for years that we needed a 30-year vision for investment, whether it be for the railways, whether it be for housing, whether it be for the NHS. We can't keep going parliament to parliament and then only planning 5 years at a time, and the people coming in unilaterally deciding, we don't like that, it's not good, we're going to do our thing in a different way. It's a waste of resources, it's a waste of taxpayers' money, it's a waste of where we need to be. We truly need that rolling programme that will actually make what we do more affordable. If we're going to build those 2 million houses, let's do it, have a firm plan. And then also have that consensus that allows us to maintain that ability and the impetus that goes with it, that we actually do plan for future generations. Stopping and starting HS2. I don't care if you like it or not. The reality is it will be built at some point, because you can't live in a little island 800 miles long with 64 million people, right, and not deliver Kyoto, Paris and the 1% without putting integrated transport and green transport and electrified transport at the heart of it. We can't live in a silo mentality that we'll accept that certain parts of the country will be vote Labour and be called the metropolitan elite, and we might be letting down other parts of the country because they don't believe in what we're saying. How do we re-engage those people to feel that they are the voice of the communities they live in? How do we re-engage those people in a way where they feel that the people they're talking to and electing locally? Now, I am Labour through and through, and it'll always be a binary choice for me. But we have to recognise that binary choice may not work in the future. So if we truly want a democracy, and a true democracy, that represents everybody as the opportunity within it, please wrap up. You didn't do that to Andy. Our reality is, this is the way forward. Campaign for it, fight for it, and when we come to vote for changing it, let's do it. Let's deliver. Thank you very much indeed.
Can we please thank again, Mick? You are leaving Asliff soon, and we wish you all the very, very best. You've been an absolutely brilliant supporter. So our next speaker, I think, must be the envy of all her colleagues, as she has got the shortest commute from her constituency to the House of Commons. But aren't we glad that finally it became a Labour seat? I think you've recently been appointed a PPS, on which congratulations, although everyone says, oh, really? It's one of those jobs. Are you really sure you want it? Anyway, there's only one way. I'm sure it's up. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for waiting so patiently. That's another nomination Andy lost, isn't it? If the PLP are ever asked. Thank you so much. And I'd like to introduce you all to Rachel Blake.
Thank you very much. You'll be delighted to know that I'm not launching anything here this afternoon, and I will certainly be listening to this wonderful person in the front row when she tells me to please wrap up. I'm going to tell a sad story of the 2010s and then just hopefully give us all some hope about what we can do to change it. I've been campaigning for electoral reform since 2011 when I was out on the doorsteps for the alternative voting referendum and found it incredibly dispiriting, despite speaking to an awful lot of people who did want there to be alternative voting. The results, I think, meant that we weren't able to have a more thorough conversation about electoral reform. And so I think that we have to learn from that experience in 2011 and that real loss of opportunity around alternative voting. The next very sad electoral reform story is the Scottish independence referendum, which I think was the beginning of a real sense of division in our electoral system, and then of course the 2016 Brexit referendum, which is actually really what made me want to step up into national politics, because of the state of division that we face in our country and the state of a lack of trust in terms of how our democracy is working for us. And that's what brings me to electoral reform. I want to see the people that I speak to every single week in the cities of London and Westminster beyond embrace and have confidence in the democracy that we so desperately need to be delivering change for this country. And I think that through electoral reform we can achieve that. We can restore trust and confidence in our democracy, which will help us to rebuild communities, to restore economic stability and confidence into communities, which is why I was so proud to be elected as a Labour Member of Parliament just 15 months ago, and why I know all of you will continue to campaign for Labour into the future. Thank you all very much.
I'd just like to know excellent timekeeping. I would also like you all to give it up. Stand up, Abby. Give it up for this woman. This is the toughest job this evening, trying to get Andy Burnham to stop talking. Now, our next speaker has been described to me by everybody, and I did try to get something more exciting than this, as really a very, very nice bloke. Universally, and I was like, come on. Really? Yeah, literally everybody appears to like him. He has, however, just become a PPS in the Treasury. Now, everyone doesn't necessarily like the Treasury, so we're going to welcome you now, and in a year's time, we're going to see whether people still like you quite as much. So I'd like to introduce one of our new 2024 intake MPs. This is Ali Strathern, who is the MP for Hitchin.
Thank you. And time will tell if I'm still getting as many likeable claps in a year's time. But look, I want to start by saying a huge thank you to Laura, Alex, and lots of people in this room who didn't start a debate on this today, but actually been fighting this fight for a really, really long time. without factional fear or favour at a time when it's not been fashionable, at a time when it's not been easy, you guys have worked really hard to keep this cause alive and to keep it front and centre in lots of our minds. And it is so important that you have. It's lovely to have come into a big, exciting Labour Parliament that wants to do big things. And it's been really nice to see electoral reform be part of that agenda already. Whether in rolling back some of the outdated changes to mayoral voting systems that the Tories brought in, or managing to extend the franchise to 16-year-olds in the next general election, those are big and exciting ideas. But at a time when so many people across my constituency, and I'm sure across many of yours in the hall today, are turning away from politics, are feeling fed up with mainstream parties, are struggling to see the point of voting, let alone the point of politics and driving forwards change, we know that those two changes alone aren't going to be enough. We know we need to see something a bit more fundamental. And that's why I really do think that proportional representation and all of the cause that you guys in this room have been fighting so long for within the Labour Party really is finally coming of age in this Parliament. Now, I think we need to be really careful about how we sell it. I don't think there's any point pretending that it's going to bring about some amazing panacea of progressive permanence that suddenly is going to solve all of our nation's ills, lead to a more tolerant politics straight away, and ensure that we never have to worry about many of the issues that we're exercised about right now. I don't think that's true, and I think it lets people like me, Rachel, Andy and others off the hook. You know, there's a lot more that we as politicians can be doing right now to tackle some of those things. But if a time when Nigel Farage and his ilk could be coming into government and forming majority government on barely over a quarter of the vote, isn't enough for us all in the Labour Party to be unifying behind the idea that every single vote should matter as much as anyone else's, wherever you are in the country, whatever region, whatever nation, whatever part of the UK are in, every vote should matter equally, every vote should have a chance to count, and that should be a unifying force, not just to get us excited, but hopefully to reconnect us to some of the people we've not done a very good job of connecting to over a very long time now. Thank you all.
Now, our next speaker, I think, is one of Labour's unsung heroines. Without her, most of us would not have a clue what was going on in National Executive Committee meetings. And if Anne Black ever leaves the NEC, I think we will somehow have to pay her to spy on the meetings still. Her email updates are a window into that world for your ordinary party member. She is tired. I mean, I don't know how many meetings, Anne Black, you must go to in a week, never mind a year. But on top of all of that, and the transparency and the communication and the dedication to the party and the wider cause, Anne is also, and brilliantly, a long-standing, I think probably lifelong supporter of electoral reform. So I'm really, really, really pleased to invite Anne Black from Labour's NEC.
Okay, thank you. And as my teachers used to tell me, I will try and stick to the question on the exam paper. So I just wanted to make 3 points. The first is that there really is no time to lose. A year ago, supporters of electoral reform were saying this is a second-term project. We'll work for a second term, we'll hope for a second term, but if Labour can win under first past the post, an overwhelming landslide on 34% of the vote, so can Nigel Farage. He is the bookies' favourite, and the bookies are more reliable than the pollsters, because that's how they make their money. It can't wait until May 2026, when Scotland, Wales, London and English councils all have elections, all of which have the potential to go wrong in various ways, and we have no control over them. So there is no time to wait at all, or we will be back in 2029 doing the same tacit backroom deals with the Lib Dems where you can have Henley if we can have Banbury kind of things that we did last time, and we want some honesty. The second is that everyone supports fair votes. It's not enough. And this is where I do relate to some of what Andy was saying, if not as extensively, is that people need to know how fair votes are more likely to get them things they do want, which is help with the cost of living, lower fuel bills, housing, jobs, schools, NHS appointments, and all the rest of it. So we need to kind of explicitly tie that in. And the third thing I wanted to mention is profile. We've lost the platform we had at conference because motions are now really restricted. Yeah. Profile. We have an APPG, a parliamentary group, which is the largest of all of them. Nobody knows about it or what it's doing. And I think what the APPG needs, all the MPs in it are doing lots of other things, they're really busy. What we need is 1 or 2 or 3 faces who will bring up electoral reform all the way through the election bill as it goes through Parliament and the amendments. Just the final model of that is, if you look at what Kim Leadbeater did on the assisted dying bill and the way she raised the profile of that, and whether you are for it or against it, you can't deny that she did a damn fine job. And what electoral reform needs, and it has to be now from the PLP, is somebody who will do for electoral reform PR what Kim Leadbeater did for her private members bill. So.
Well, you heard it here first. So, just a little bit of propaganda interlude. Andy Burnham, just to remind us, he did actually come to talk about electoral reform. Andy Burnham made it very clear he supports the National Commission on Electoral Reform. That is the major call to action of the APPG. There are a number of APPG members here. We are very grateful. Of course, what tends to happen is that the MPs who like PR are extremely talented and get promoted. And so we find we lose some of their time. But I have to say that the APPG members have been absolutely brilliant from the Labour Party, including a large number of MPs who joined in 2024. Anyway, on your chairs you should find a copy of the National Commission for Electoral Reform Terms of Reference. Only a PR fringe could give you terms of reference as a present to take away. However, this thing is really important. It's the how we do it. It's how we have a conversation with the public, with parliamentarians who bring their experience, and with experts in constitutional reform. Don't worry, if you can't find a copy up there, we've got some more down the front. Anyway, our next speaker, I'm really delighted that he is joining us. It has taken him a little while to get here. Now, he's not been busy. Last year, Nick Lowles was recognised with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Sheila McKechnie Foundation for his work campaigning against fascism, racism and extremism. He is the founder of Hope, that's capital letters, not hate, which is a brilliant organisation, and he has recently published a book. He has never, however, publicly spoken at a fringe for electoral reform, and I think his voice is a really important one, as we are frequently told you can't have PR, it will let in the far right. Well, this man has dedicated 35 years of his life at great personal cost, and that of his friends and his family and his colleagues, to fighting the far right. So I think when Nick Lowles tells us that PR isn't a bad idea, we should listen, and I'm really pleased that you've joined us.
Thanks for the intro. Look, I feel a bit kind of humble and embarrassed that I'm such a late convert to PR. Partly, I've been busy, and often I spend my life firefighting, and I don't really get the chance to think about other things. But also, I suppose I took in the belief that PR stopped the far right. And this year, in 16 weeks, I wrote a book called How to Beat the Far Right, and it just made me think in a way that I hadn't really stepped back and think before. The rise of the far right is partly a consequence, largely a consequence of our broken system. People are disengaged, disillusioned, disaffected. They don't feel their voices being heard. They don't think their issues are being represented. 2/3 of people think that the political system is broken, and only 5% believe that the political system works well. There are some who say, oh, well, look, PR is the best way to stop Farage. I've come to the view that PR is absolutely essential. It's absolutely essential because it is the right way to run our system. But more importantly, I don't think we should just stop at PR. The whole political system needs turning on its head. People need to be given back power. People need to feel that they have a sense of ownership of the political system at a local level, at a regional level, and at a national level. I keep looking for the things that, but look, I think this is really important, because the longer this system is broken, the longer we go on where there is an absolute disconnect between people and power, the worse it's going to be. So look, it's taken me a long journey to come here. Every year, Laura kind of sends me a little message. Will I speak? Will I? Oh, bit busy. But look, I'm really pleased to be here. I give it my commitment, and I will do whatever I can to support it. Thank you.
Oh, that's going to cost me a pint. Our next speaker, has he? Oh, no, he's not done a run of good. Our next speaker was elected at the last election. He brings to Parliament a wealth of experience working on a whole range of issues, including in international development, but also in open government. He's very interested in a breadth of issues to do with democracy. I think you've had to give up your APPG chairing because you've been recently promoted. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, it's hard. But it's really, really, really great that we've got Joe here, because I think he brings a very broad perspective to the discussion. I know that electoral reform is not the only aspect of democratic reform that you're interested in. So I would like to introduce Joe Powell, who is the MP for Kensington and Bayswater.
Thank you, Laura. And as you say, I've been worried about the state of our democracy, our British democracy, for many years. And that is not just about what system we use at elections. It's about the thing that I think we all understand, which is happening in other Western countries as well, which is this precipitous decline in trust in our institutions and our government. And what that decline of trust does is it leaves us increasingly vulnerable to those who want to exploit division, whether that is foreign interference or whether that is people closer to home. And we only have to see another part of our APPG's agenda is on the dirty money that still comes into our politics. Foreign money coming through shell companies, unincorporated associations, and we can see what's happened with the former leader of Reform in Wales taking bribes to push Russia in the European Parliament. I think that is going to get worse with our current political actors, and it's something that our democratic guardrails are not yet fit for purpose to prevent. So there is some good news, which is the Ethics and Integrity Commission, which will be introduced, will help us focus more on standards. And as others have said, the Elections Bill tackles some of the foreign interference and dirty money issue, and of course gets rid of first past the post for mayors and police and crime commissioners. But I just want to take you briefly to the West of England election earlier this year, where I was campaigning for our successful campaign to win the mayoralty. And our candidate there was fantastic. She was the best candidate. She deserved to win and would do a great job. But many of those voters were telling me, when we were canvassing it during that campaign, that they were struggling to work out who to vote for, not based on any policy or ideas, but on who they didn't want to win. And Aaron Banks was on the ballot paper, so fair enough. And so I think the lesson for that is now coming to Westminster elections too, because our system was not designed for 3 or 4 or 5-way contests with razor-thin margins, creating huge swings in the national parliament. So I don't think we have anything to fear. I think a National Commission on Electoral Reform, combined with the Elections Bill and the Ethics and Integrity Commission, can give a real renewal to our democracy and start to restore that trust that we know we've been losing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So our next speaker has many hats, one of which is that she is on the executive of the Labour campaign for electoral reform. And I think, where is he? Yes, Sandy Martin is here, who is the chair of the Labour campaign for electoral reform. Don't worry, Sandy, you're not about to speak. You can relax. And I don't know who else is here from LCR. If you are not, oh, brilliant. If you're not a member of LCR, please do join. Our next speaker, however, is not just a member of the LCR executive. She was also a district councillor for 6 years. I have been following her on social media, where I see that she's a very strong champion of the voice of members on the NEC. And I think she was the only dissenting voice on the NEC when the timetable for the deputy leadership election was announced, and it wasn't a sort of party pre-position about who to vote for. It was about making sure there was enough time and that everyone who wanted to could engage in the process. I think you made some very powerful points about the representation of disabled people. It's no surprise to me, therefore, that Kat Arnold is also a supporter of proportional representation, which, of course, has its heart at the idea that everyone counts and should be counted. So I'm really, really grateful that you found the time, because like Anne Black, you have lots of meetings.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. And I don't know what I'm more nervous about, following not only Andy Burnham, but my good friend Anne Black. I'm going to stick to the brief. And I'm going to get a little punt in here that actually I got elected onto the NEC last year with a grand campaign of £100. So that's not democracy in action. I don't know what is really. So it can happen. So when we look to proportional representation, I am deeply proud that we, of course, won the election in 2024, but with 36% of the votes, and it doesn't feel like a landslide to me. It doesn't feel like something we should be proud of, and we can do better. And first past the post for me allows too many very dodgy electoral coalitions to take place, and nobody wants to go back to 2010 again, do they? So it's fantastic. We've got single transferable vote for the mayorals and the PCCs, and then the votes at 16. That's wonderful stuff, but we have to go further and faster before the next election. And we have to stop reform in 2029. And we know that they are targeting 40% of non-voters. As an ex-councillor, I have lost count of how many times I was out knocking on doors in my last year of being a councillor and being told on the council estates that had the least amount of investment, nothing ever changes, my vote doesn't make any difference. With proportional representation, we are half the way there, and with social justice policies at the core combined, we're there even further. So that's what I want to see. Now, Keir Starmer, just going back to the reform, of course, there was touched upon about the dark money, and of course reform took in the last year 5 million from a whole load of dodgy donations, everything from fossil fuel donors to bankers and to ex-Tory funders. Now, you could argue that's all the same group. And when we see then Keir Starmer talk to the fight for trust being the battle that defines our age, that's never more prevalent than it is right now. Now, what's really interesting, and what I would really ask you to do from today, is speak to your MP, and if they are not signed up to the APPG, which is the largest APPG in government, ask them, lobby them hard to sign up. And what is fantastic about this work and the work done by Alex and everybody else is that we are looking, there are 3 recommendations here. The National Commission, which is impartial, independent, and that would be really important to get all political parties on board with that. The closing down of loopholes with dark money, and of course tackling disinformation through the social media channels. So all of those 3 things are in here. Come and speak to us more on the LCER stand, which is E7 in the main hall. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
People here. So as Laura said, I'm the MP for Vauxhall and Camberwell Green, and it's good to see some members here with us. You'll always be a member of Vauxhall. I'm going to keep it very brief. So I'm also the chair of the Housing Communities and Local Government Select Committee, which also includes the oversight of elections and democracy. So I get to grill the chair of the Electoral Commission. I get to also sit on the appointments panel for the chair of the Local Government Boundary Commission and the National Boundary Commission. And I mention these 2 things because I think it is so important. When we think about where we live, when we think about place, we think about our doorstep, right? But yet, in the last few elections, a number of people haven't even bothered to come out and engage in that process because they don't feel part of their community. As so many people have said already, and I've said it in the chamber, all of us, every single one of us in this room, know that we've been on the doorstep where someone has said to them, my vote doesn't count, what's the point? And we've got to ask ourselves, at a time when we are seeing less people trust in politics, we need to re-galvanise our democracy. And one way to do that is to make sure we change the voting system. It is only right and proper that we enfranchise more people. So I'm really happy to see that something that I push for when we're in opposition should be happening very soon, enfranchising more young people to vote. And someone said, but they might not vote Labour. This isn't about them voting Labour. This is about getting people being active citizens and participating in our democracy. People are saying if you change it to a PR system, all the Labour seats that we won the election, you may not win. Again, this isn't for our advantage. This is about making sure we have a healthy democracy. So continue to lobby your MPs. We're growing in size in terms of trying to make sure there are more MPs supporting this. And I think it's about us making that case because we do not want to go down the road of seeing reform in power. Thank you very much.
Not only today, but you've got stamina, because I was here on the Fringe in the early 90s, I think probably with Luke Akehurst, championing the issue of PR and electoral reform when it was a really fringe issue. And guys, we finally hit the mainstream. Look at the press pack we had earlier. We were a packed Fringe. So it's worth persisting. It does feel that proportional representation is closer than ever, but it's also much more needed than ever. We've got 60% of public support, remember that. But you've also got a significant proportion of the Parliamentary Labour Party now in support of proportional representation. And it's been great to have colleagues along tonight speaking. But this surge in support, as we've heard so clearly from people like Nick from Hope Not Hate, has coincided with this fragmentation of politics. It's pretty hard to believe, but Labour and Tories are now supported by less than 40% of voters, and we've got 5 parties polling double digits. So if ever we could say the age of the two-party system is over, it is over. That party is over. And we need a new electoral system that reflects this reality. I won my seat in Shipley by asking supporters of the Lib Dems and Greens to lend me their vote. Tactical working won, in the sense that I won. It worked. But to do that, too many people felt their vote didn't count. And as we've heard, that feeds a sense of people being disengaged and distrusting, to the extent that 40% of people stayed at home. So we can't wait another term to act, I think, as we've heard today. PR would help us build, I believe, a more collaborative politics, and we need it now more than ever as we see so much division and hate in our democratic debates and in our communities. It would help us build a democracy that's truly representative. It would help us rebuild trust in our politics when trust is at an all-time low. And it's for these reasons that I'm adding my support to the National Commission for Electoral Reform. It's why I believe in PR and why we need it now. We mustn't wait. It may be too late.
Still a member of the Welsh Senedd. I kind of wish the press were here. I can't think of a better way to end with someone who has been a member of the Labour campaign for electoral reform, I think, for about 40 years. Do join. And has been very generous with his time to LCR and to Labour for New Democracy. I think this is a brilliant way to end. So when he finishes, that will be it. Please come to our Fringe on Monday. There are leaflets tomorrow. Gosh, it's a long week, isn't it? Blimey, we're only a day in. So tomorrow is indeed only Monday. We have a Fringe. There's propaganda on your seats. I think it starts at 4:15. 4:15. There you are. Starts at 4:15. We've got some brilliant speakers. But please, a very, very warm welcome to Mark Drakeford.
Well, I'm a gyfeillion, prynhawn da. To those of you who are waiting for breakfast, you've not long to go now. what is there left to say? You've heard it all. When Andy was here, you saw it all as well. I think I'm here because some of the things that do seem like distant dreams to those people who've campaigned for so long for PR are actually not distant dreams in Wales, because we have a PR system and have since the start of devolution. Look, the renewal of our democracy is much more than PR, and PR is much more than the Labour Party. But I just wanted to say briefly some things to you about some myths which are pernicious in our party about proportional representation, and those are, first of all, that the system is inherently hostile to Labour, and secondly, that it is a failure of the political system when you have to work with another political party. So on the first of those, if the system of PR is inherently hostile to Labour, how is it that the Labour Party has been in power in Wales for 26 years under a PR system? There is nothing inherently difficult for the Labour Party about PR. And on the second point, while we have been in power throughout the whole history of devolution, we've never won a majority. And that means in every single election and in every single Senate term, we have had to work with other parties. And it's strange to begin with, and it's exhausting stuff because it takes an awful lot of talking and compromising and finding sources of agreement. The more you do it, the more you learn how to do it. And by now, it's just the normal and natural way in which our politics is conducted. The cabinet that I led was a Labour cabinet sustained with, because we had no majority of our own, by the leader of the Liberal Democrats and the former president of Plaid Cymru. Now, if that isn't a coalition of progressive forces designed to give the stability that Andy mentioned and to guarantee that people get the sort of government that they have voted for, well, I don't know what is. And by the end of this term, we have legislated to make sure that in May 2026, we will have a system that is even more proportional than the one that we have used since 1999. And thank goodness for it, because we are in for the fight of our lives in those elections. And under our current system, proportional as it is, there would have been a real risk that those 40 first-past-the-post seats would have been vulnerable to a Reform Party picking up 31% of the vote. Under our new system, which is entirely proportional, if Reform do manage to get 30% of the vote, they will get 30% of the seats, and 70% of the seats in the Senedd will be shared amongst progressive parties. The system will save the Labour Party in Wales, and more importantly than that, it will save progressive government, because that is what Wales will vote for, even if we have to suffer a significant number of Reform members of the Senedd. So look, at the end of this marathon session, here is my message to you. Proportional voting systems are good for our party, better for our politics, necessary for our nation, and essential for our democracy. That's what we're there to sell. Thank you all very much for everything you do to make that happen.
Thank you, thank you. It just remains for me to say a thank you to our partners from across the electoral reform movement, Make Votes Matter, who you have already met, Open Britain, I think Mark is sitting somewhere in the middle of the room, the Labour Campaign for Electoral Reform, who you have hopefully also met, Unlock Democracy, who are sitting on the second row. Have I missed anybody? Oh, Compass. Sam from Compass was here, so thank you, Compass. So those organisations, Unlock Democracy, Labour Campaign for Electoral Reform, Labour for New Democracy, Compass, blimey, Cuddly Toy, Toaster. Who remembers those days? Now I'm showing my age. Yes! Give it up to the boomers. But most of all, apart from our partners across the movement, thank you to you. Those of you who've been here as delegates in recent years, you've helped us get the motion passed in 2021, then in 2022. You helped us through the National Policy Forum in 2023, and you're still here and you're still making the case, and we are enormously grateful. This campaign would be nothing without the support of Labour Party members from across the country. So I would now like you to give yourselves a big round of applause, and thank you for joining us.